Hello, everybody. Brian Schwager back again for yet another self-empowering video series. And today we're going to empower you with the knowledge to take control of your immune and lymphatic system. So today's presentation is about immunity. And this series will probably go into three parts. Now, your immune and lymphatic system are the greatest defenses against all disease and all illness. How about that to start out with? You want to build your defenses? This information will get you started. All right. So in this presentation, you're going to learn how the immune system works, what it is, how does it work, what is the lymphatic system, and how does it work. And once you start to gather this knowledge, you can take it right away. You can take this knowledge and put it to work for you like I did. And I have a real passion for this topic. So let's get started. The passion for this topic started about 1994. Let me give you some background to show you, to kind of share with you what gives me the knowledge to present on this topic. Yes, I studied the immune system in college. I studied exercise science. And I took a passion to the immune system early on when I became when I was working towards becoming more of a professional trainer. And it was about 1995. I was running the Mind Body Connection. That was my first company. And what I was learning a lot about immune function, because one thing I saw right away in the early 90s, and I can go all the way back, but what I was seeing is the immune system being compromised in a lot of my clients. So has anybody out there heard of autoimmune challenges? Okay. I think a lot of us now have heard about it. This was relatively a new topic in the early 90s. And that's where I had to learn. So I would contact, my team, naturopaths and other complementary healthcare practitioners, so I can gain an understanding of what I can and can't do with my clients when they have this sort of challenge. So autoimmune challenges. Now, the other thing I noticed, and I don't think this is anything really new, is that every fall we have the same cold and flu season. And I attended a seminar, a workshop. Oh God, I don't remember what year it was. It had to have been in the 90s though. And it was a Tony Robbins workshop, and it had everything to do with your health. I forget what it was, empowering your health workshop or something like that. If you haven't heard of Tony Robbins, he's a pretty motivated guy. But he shared some information in there that was revolutionary. And one of the things he talked about was this cycle of the cold and flu season, its relationship to lifestyle and the lymphatic system. Now, I'm not going to go into explaining what all that information was, but I was buzzing after that. It was a really good workshop, and I learned a lot about health and nutrition at that workshop. And my health or my education on lifestyle and the immune system was pretty small, but it grew from that 2-day event. So another passion I have is to understand it was because my mother had died. What I figured was really young. I think she was only 47 years old. She died of cancer. And here I was blown away. And you hear about these deaths, but when it hits home, you're kind of like, wow. And I'm in this industry, and I'm like, wow, what's going to happen? How can I use my service to help prevent this challenge? So I began to get really interested on sickness and why we get sick and how does this, convert over to cancer or grow into cancer. And it was right about that time I was just out of college. My business was going really good, and I was fascinated by all forms of exercise at that time. And I was also being very cautious. I was assessing already and doing things that other trainers weren't doing. But here's my point. I was in school with a good friend, and he went off to chiropractic college, and I stayed in Milwaukee and started launching my service. And I had a really good part-time job at a sports medicine complex. Years earlier, he had given me a book while we were in college called The Cancer Answer. And I'm like, wow, well, this book, now I got the answer to cancer. And he said, what you're going to read, Brian, is it's really written for the layman and how the immune system works. Of course, the back of the book, he talks all about rebounding. Now, when I think of rebounding, I think of a trampoline. And the author, Albert E. Carter, he was a former professional trampolinist. And what he discovered years and years of performing, and him and his kids performing, that his kids, as they were growing up, and by the time they got to an age where, well, at least with his son, his daughter was very athletic. When his son got into athletics and wrestling, the coach was really surprised at how strong this young man was. And this young kid never lifted any weights. But Albert Carter started looking at the effects of rebounding on the human body. And one of the things he discovered was its effect on the immune and lymphatic system. It helped to drain your lymph system. And you're going to learn how important your lymphatic system is here today. And as your lymphatic system is cleaning, your immune system works better. So, and a lot of exercises will do this, but I was fascinated by this because it was portable, it was easy, and the kind of rebounder that they were talking about, a small mini trampoline, was not like the one that I would find at the department store. This unit was designed differently. So long story short, I called Albert Carter, and we had these long discussions because I was real skeptical about all the benefits that he was sharing in this book. Not so much about the immune system, but about all the other benefits. Well, he set the story straight, and he also wrote another book, which I ended up reading, called The New Miracles of Rebound Exercise. And in that book, he coined the term reboundologist and reboundology as a science. And I was like, wow, where do I learn this? So I ended up finding one of his instructors and becoming a level 1 reboundologist, then a level 2, and then I was graced and honored to become one of only 3 certified master reboundologists in the world. But in these courses, it was incredible what I was learning about the immunolymphatic system, what I was learning about digestion, what I was learning about lifestyle. It was great. It was a great compliment as my career was kicking off. And I was so fascinated by this and so passionate that I began to write presentations and present all over Milwaukee. And then eventually I flew to Colorado. I flew out to Massachusetts and Boston, went down to Naples, Florida, and I was presenting on this topic. And I was so passionate about it. And I still am to this day. And so that's kind of what gives me some sort of insight on this topic. And again, I'm learning a lot at the Czech Institute when it comes to lifestyle, lymphatic system, immune system, and all other systems in the body. But go down here to the bottom where I'm a level 3, that's really where I got the bulk of my information and my education on immunity. Okay, so let's fast forward. I foreseen that we were gonna need to change how we were exercising based on rebounding. We were gonna have to change the way we were prescribing exercise, because what I was understanding then and what I definitely understand now is that exercise has a beneficial effect. Movement has a beneficial effect on your immune and lymphatic system, but it has to be prescribed right, and it has to be tailored to the individual. And that's what we're going to discuss also today. In that the immune system, when I would do these presentations and I would ask my audience, hardly anybody knew how the immune system worked. And definitely hardly anybody knew what the lymphatic system was and how it worked. And by the end of the presentation, people were empowered with the knowledge. So again, I was always a visionary. I foreseen the importance of the mind-body connection. Hence, my first company was called the Mind-Body Connection in 1994. Then I created the Institute of Cellular Health and Fitness based on all the fascinating information I was learning in the area of the immunolymphatic system, thanks to, in part, to becoming a master reboundologist. Then I created a service called Life Enhancement, because within, to enhance your immune system, to enhance your cellular system, you have to change your lifestyle. So I created the Life Enhancement Company right before I stopped working, got out of the business. And I said to myself, based on all the health challenges that kept climbing, everything was still going up, even with all the knowledge into the late 90s, there was really no stopping diseases. There was really no stopping muscle, joints, and what I'll call or what they call musculoskeletal health challenges. They were always climbing. And I just didn't understand this. And I wanted to, and I also was looking to enhance my own education and certifications. But I wanted to change directions and go totally holistic. So I moved to North Carolina in 2003 to work for my friend who I was in undergraduate school with, who later on became one of the most prominent chiropractors, and then became a functional nutritionist and a functional neurologist. And he brought me on staff as an exercise specialist to work in his clinic. And I went back to school and started studying at the Czech Institute and all the other places and organizations I studied through. And I saw two things. Number one, not only was I was so fascinated by the immunolymphatic system and the importance of teaching people about lifestyle, but I was also seeing another area that we were not focusing on in the health and fitness arena was functional movement, assessing functional movement and screening movement, et cetera, to prevent injuries. So what are we going to be talking about here is preventing the complications of the cold and flu and pathogens and, it turning into cancers and disease. And my other passion, if you watch my second series, is to prevent injuries. And the more we know up front, right, the more information we have on the front end, the less problems we have on the back end, right? If I collect data, in other words, if I ask you certain questions, rather subjectively, and then objectively look at you moving, from the subjective information, I could already start to draw a picture as to what's going on. So asking you symptom-related questions, right? So do you get low back pain when you sit? Do you get low back pain when you stand? Do you have problems sleeping? I will go and rate your emotional stress. I'll ask you certain questions that have to do with your emotional stress area. I will find out about your eating habits, your frequency, what you're putting in your body. And that will give me a lot of information about how polluted your body is, if you have dysregulations in your digestive system. And all these things can affect your immune system. And all the other questions having to do with your movement sort of give me an idea what needs to be looked at before you start moving more. Just like in your health, before you start doing more, we want to find out if your system can take it. Because if you're not prepared for the cold and flu season, then watch out, and your chances are going to go way up. So how do we teach people how to become more prepared so that they don't not only get the cold and flu, but what about the year-round problems? How many of you out there would like to prevent yourself from, the complications with cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes? These are questions my family had to ask, because my mother died at age 47 from cancer. That was the first part of my passionate journey. I wanted to understand what happened. And then my father, um, with complications and dying only at 61 years old, and I'm 60 right now. So, what can I do for me to reduce my chances? Because I have these risk factors built in. Supposedly, it's not all what you think as far as the carryover of these hereditary factors, but we still have these risk factors. If my lifestyle was going to be like my father's and my mother's, then I can expect that I'm going to have complications in my 40s and 50s with my health. But if I can understand what I can do to augment that, which I did, because I had a weak immune system growing up. I was born sick. And I didn't take a hold of this until I was in my 30s, and I already had complications. So there was my passion. Just like movement. When I look at people move, and if they don't have pain, if you have pain, it's a whole nother situation, but I can still understand where it came from and get to the cause and help my clients to alleviate pain. But if they don't have pain and they come to me and they have these movement restrictions and they have flexibility imbalances, and maybe in their past they had pain in their back or their shoulder or their neck, but they don't now, and so on and so forth. And the fitness industry is fast becoming educated on more preventative tactics, which means pre-screening, which means more detailed health histories, which has everything to do with this topic, because our concerns are even greater now because of what's going on in the world. With all the concerns about the recent viral outbreak, along with the flu and other harmful pathogens, the future of our health will depend on boosting our natural herd immunity and by using only natural substances to eliminate harmful pathogens. When this started around 2019, I put together this presentation and was doing this in Asheville, North Carolina. I wanted to get out in front as much as possible. And the minute we had an outbreak, I was already listening to other sources of information from microbiologists, virologists, immunologists, and beginning to understand what was going on. And it's not what we're taught. Trust me. Even when it comes to exercise, there's a lot of fallacies out there. When it comes to lifestyle enhancement, there's a lot of fallacies out there. And with the internet, it can be very confusing for not only me. I now know how to fish through the false information, but there's a lot of misinformation out there when it comes to exercise and lifestyle. To me, it's all depending on the person. Unless I know more about you, I can't give you advice. This advice here is just general. But for you specifically, that's where assessments come into play. That's where detailed health histories come into play. And those are boxed into consultations. In my consultation process, I discover what is going on, and then I put a team around me, because sometimes my clients, a lot of times, in fact, most times right now, because I work with clients that have very difficult health and I'll just call them health challenges, that I have to refer out a lot of times and work in concert in a team approach with other practitioners, naturopathic doctors, chiropractors, massage therapists, etc. So when this concern came out, I right away went into my archives of information, all the presentations that I did in the 90s, and I began to write a presentation having to do with this topic. So here I've been teaching and presenting and writing about the immunolymphatic systems for over 20 years. I have spent countless hours studying, researching, and learning firsthand from lymphologists, virologists, microbiologists, and immunologists on how to create a healthy immune lymphatic system. This is an excerpt from some information that was written about me when I was being asked to be a keynote speaker at the annual International and Integrative Healthcare Holistic Iridology Congress. I was invited to speak on cellular exercise in front of over 250 integrated healthcare practitioners. oh my gosh, what an honor it was to go and do that. And so, with all that, what are we going to learn? How about a brief overview of the immune system and how it works? You know, how about the germ theory versus the terrain theory? This is this topic right here flipped me around, and I stumbled on the terrain theory through reboundology. But as I was going down the rabbit hole, wow, did I discover some truths that were hidden. A brief overview of the lymphatic system. We need to teach the people how this system works. Cellular malfunction is the cause of all disease and sickness. And the four principles, my four principles to wellness and movement are also the four principles to enhancing your immune and lymphatic systems. All right. So if I was doing this live, which I kind of am here, but if I was doing it in front of a live audience, I would ask for a show of hands here. Did you know your immune system is your number one defense against all illness and disease? How many people out there knew this? Now, back when I would ask this question live, I would get maybe half the audience's hands to go up. Your immune system helps you recover from injury. Did you know that? A lack of sleep and increase in emotional stress reduces immune function. How many people knew that? That certain foods reduce immune function and that movement is medicine. Actually, here are some facts. Here we go. Louis Pasteur's controversial germ theory of disease was wrong. That's a pretty strong and bold statement, but I'll stand behind it based on what I was researching. It was actually Dr. Antoine Béchamp and Dr. Claude Bernard, both contemporaries of Pasteur. They discovered the true nature of germs, bacteria, and viruses. Dr. Claude Bernard, who describes the milieu, or environment, the environment in which all cells live, is what actually affected, caused the changes that create virus, germs, and toxins to exist. According to the National Institutes of Health, the immune system provides one of the body's main defenses against cancer. And Dr. Otto Warburg discovered that no disease, including cancer, can grow in an oxygenated and alkaline environment. So let's start out with the basic immune system education, or what I call immune system 101. The immune system is a network of cells and organs that work together to defend the body against attacks from foreign invaders. And according to the 9th edition of Guyton and Hall's textbook of medical physiology, the human body has the ability to resist almost all types of organisms or toxins that tend to damage the tissues and organs. This capacity is called immunity. Here are our enemies. And one thing that I was always really good at in the martial arts when I was in competition is first I must study my enemy, learn his weaknesses so that I can defend against him. Now, even though I'm not an active mixed martial artist anymore, well, semi-active, I've turned my fight to this. These are my enemies. And I had to become aware and I had to understand what their weaknesses were. And thanks to Dr. Antoine Béchamp and Dr. Claude Bernard, I now understand the weaknesses, the number one correlating weaknesses for all of these invaders is your cellular environment, which I'll be teaching you about. So these foreign invaders, here they are: viruses, toxins, carcinogens, fungus, pollution, bacteria, germs, and parasites. Those are our enemies. And that is exactly what we're going to learn to defend against in this presentation. Here we go. The number of immune specific cells and their functions. So the immune system makes up 1% of the body, and 75% of it resides in your intestinal tract. Did you know that? Do you know that 75% of your defenses for your entire human organism are right in your stomach? No wonder it's so important to keep our gut healthy. To me, it's your first line of defense, other than how does food get into your stomach? You have to eat it, right? You have to swallow it. Well, you remember those things called tonsils? They took my tonsils out. Those little tonsils are part of your immune system. They're little receptors. They pick up information as food runs past, goes down into your throat. And if there's something not good in what you're putting in your mouth, your tonsils will pick up that information, communicate with the immune system in your stomach, and let them know that there's something coming their way that they have to be ready for. Did you know that? Why did they cut mine out? Well, I was real sick. I had ear infections. I had swollen lymph nodes. I was always sick, and they were giving me more drugs, and I was always sick. And then they put tubes in my ears, and then they took my tonsils out. And then I was worse afterwards. But that's where your immune system, to me, that's where it starts, is right here. And then in your entire body, you have a circulating immune system, because it's everywhere. There's nowhere that it's not. And then you have lymphatic sacs called lymph nodes. And those are filters. And what you're going to learn is that they work together. So when your filters are clogged and your lymphatic system is sluggish, it affects your immune system. The immune system can identify, remember, and attack and destroy illness-causing invaders and infected cells with strong chemicals and digestive abilities. It can identify, remember, and attack? Sure. Your immune cells are highly intelligent. In fact, there are hundreds of different immune cells, and they all have a specific function. They have an innate function within them to do various jobs. In fact, in this part of your body, there is a gland called your thymus gland, and that's where your T cells are produced. In your bones, you have bone marrow, where you produce immune cells as well. But in your thymus gland, your little T cells are going to school, and they're learning their jobs for innate immunity. And then when they graduate, they are deployed into your body to do what they were designed to, and they communicate with your central processing unit. They communicate with your environment. So the minute you have a foreign invader, whatever cells are designed for that specific foreign invader, they're already on it. The minute it's in your system, your body is on it. How is that for communication? That even works better than half of our cell phones do, as far as efficiency. But they remember, attack, and they identify, and then they destroy. Here are a few of the immune specialized cells. Here's our B cells. They recognize antigens, foreign molecules like viruses, bacteria, and harmful chemicals. T cells are responsible for cell-mediated response to illness. This response is very important in fighting viruses, bacteria, and parasites. Macrophages are the first line of defense against infection. They patrol, scavenge, and destroy foreign invaders. NK cells are white blood cells and lymphocytes that search and eliminate any foreign invader. And cytokines are small secreted proteins released by cells that have a specific effect on the interactions and communications between cells. And an overstimulation of this response causes a cytokine storm. Overstimulation would be you have an illness, you have some sort of inflammatory response. It could even be caused by an extreme emotional response. But these cells have independent jobs of them, and they are circulating throughout your body. And when they go on demand, your body chemistry changes. So let's look at macrophages for a second. So when you have an infection in your body, it gets red, doesn't it? It gets swollen. And your body heats up, much like when you have an infection, bacterial infection in your body, and your body temperature goes up. Well, that's an indication that your immune system is on demand. Now, you don't want that body temperature to go past a certain point because you could die. But as it's going up, rest assured that that means your immune system is highly active. And the redness and the swelling is where they're grouping in to do their job. They're down there eating these things up. These things meaning bacteria, viruses, or any one of these foreign invaders. And the T cells, they attach to these foreign invaders. Here's a picture and an image of the T cell attaching to a cancer cell and destroying it, which is happening right now. All of your immune systems are doing their job right now, even as you're sitting here watching this. And they're communicating constantly. In fact, they can listen in on your thoughts. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, according to Dr. Candace Pert, she had discovered beyond a shadow of a doubt that when you have a thought, you have a chemical peptide that's produced with that thought that travels through the body and attaches to receptor sites on the outside of the cell. The outside of your cell has receptor sites, and the thoughts will be picked up by your cells. So you tell me, when you're sad, does your cellular system get depressed? Well, you know that emotionally you're depressed. And you know that when you're depressed, you're more susceptible to illness, aren't you? And in contrast, when you're happy, your cells are happy. Did you know that your immune system actually gets boosted with laughter? That's why Dr. Happiness is so important to interject into your lifestyle, either on a monthly basis, weekly basis, or daily basis. I'll often give my clients who are not feeling well a prescription for humor and comedy. I say, what makes you laugh? And they'll say, oh, this movie made me laugh. Watch that movie tonight. You see how they communicate with one another? Remember, they identify and they remember and they attack. They know their job. We just got to get out of the way. All right. So for part one, I think we'll come up to this point because my intro was nice and long. So I can give you some kind of a background on what gives me the passion to talk about this. But in part two, we're going to go into the germ theory of disease. So join me in part two, and we'll go further into the germ theory of disease, and I will share with you some incredible information that I discovered in the late 90s that blew me away. To this day, it blows me away. If you have any questions, you know how to contact me. It'll be at the end of this video. We have all my contact information. I enjoy this. I am passionate about it. I share because I care. Have a great day. Namaste, everybody. Bye for now.